is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Robert J. Whitman, who's the founder and CEO of Forward Science. He received both his bachelor's and master's degrees in biomedical engineering from Tulane University and began his career as a clinical engineer at MD Anderson Cancer Center, where his focus was developing advanced technology for early detection of cervical cancer. Fueled by a passion for early cancer diagnosis, Robert then went to work in research and development at Remicom, where he worked on creating cancer screening products utilizing fluorescent technology licensed from MD Anderson Cancer Center. Finally, in 2012, Robert launched Forward Science with fellow former engineer Brian M. Piccolo with the goal of developing innovative technologies for clinicians to advance oral cancer screening procedures. In addition to his role as CEO, Robert also serves as an advisor to startup medical technology companies on product development strategies at the Texas Medical Center and often speaks nationally on the topic of oral cancer and early discovery. I think what Mark S. Chambers, the Department of Head and Neck Surgery at University of Texas MD Anderson Center doing is just mind-boggling. And you went to Tulane. Congratulations on getting a degree while living in New Orleans, home of Bourbon Street, where I was at last weekend with 3 of my 4 sons. And I don't know how. Why are you not an alcoholic? You should have never gone to class. What happened?
You know, I think discipline early on gets you get a good taste at such an early age that you get through that. So most people start drinking in college, but you know, I won't admit this to my parents all the time, but we got a much earlier start than the average person, if you will.
And Tulane, I mean, it's consistently ranked among the top 50 universities in the nation. And the reason I asked you to be on the show, you did not ask me, is because I have never understood the difference between oral cancer and cervical cancer. I mean, you turn that patient upside down, it's cervical cancer, insurance pays, they have all these tests, they have regular screenings. It's like, duh. And then you turn that human over and you look at the mouth, the same technology, the same fluorescence. Delta Dental doesn't pay for the exams. The tests aren't screened. You don't have CNN yelling all the time, get your annual screening. And it's like 50,000 Americans die from oral cancer each year. What is going on? Why is this still crazy?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, we started our career at MD Anderson Cancer Center doing cervical cancer research. And early on, you know, the numbers were exactly where oral cancer numbers are. We're at 40, 50,000 cases. And in, you know, the 90s, the pap smear came out and these trends, the 50s, the pap smear came out, these trends, you know, plummeted. So you went from 50,000 cases to 12,000 now, but
for cervical
cancer.
Okay.
So you went from 50-ish thousand down to 12,000. And, you know, some people talk about the vaccine playing a role in that, and maybe so because time's passed enough now, but it's really because if annual screenings were so regimented for females to get an annual pap smear. And yes, the elephant in the room is, of course, females are going to get an annual pap smear if the insurance pays for it. So if I'm going to go to my annual OB-GYN, and by no means are you and I getting a pap smear, so we'll throw that out the window now, but for women that are getting an annual pap smear, we're finding cervical cancer so early now. That's why the rates have plummeted. So it's not just that it's going away. It's the fact that we're finding it so early that it never metastasizes into cancer, and the HPV is being removed. And now we're having much longer prognosis for these females.
And what year was the peak of cervical cancer, 50,000, when it started to?
This is in the mid-50s, 1950s is when the CDC came out and said we have to do something about this. And this is kind of what we educate dentistry on is, you know, the annual pap smear changed the game on cervical cancer. It forced women to go get every year a preventative screening test. So if the CDC pays for it, insurance pays for it, in theory, it's a great test, right?
Right.
It's only 50% accurate scientifically. Now, we want that test that's 90% accurate, 100% accurate. And the challenge is we want a test that just tests way more advanced than right now. Back in the day, it was colposcopes, and it was looking. So the accuracy for pap smears was actually pretty low. It was the fact that cervical cancer was getting paid by insurance and females were getting educated properly to get screenings.
Okay, so, you know, how many people are dying of oral cancer? Is it still about 50,000?
Yeah, we're getting 53,000 cases here in the U.S. diagnosed, and we're getting about 10,000 die. That's just the U.S. You know, you throw in third world countries and places like India, where 40% of all cancer is oral cancer, Now you're a top 10 cancer where it's a third of the deaths are from cancer are related to oral cancer. So to your point, I mean, the issue is this is the only cancer, and again, when you look at statistics, the first book that we ever read in engineering school was How to Lie with Statistics. So I challenge every stat that we were ever told. Oral cancer is the only cancer in the past 16 years that's risen every single year in incidence rate. We got to do something, right? I mean, there's something that we're doing wrong in the United States of America, and nobody wants to talk about it. So, our issue is that incidence is rising, but also survival rate hasn't gotten better. So you put those two things together, and now you have, one in every hour American dies of oral cancer, and it hasn't changed in 2 or 3 decades.
Okay, so what is the difference between a female cervical cancer viewed in society versus oral cancer? I always felt that some of it has to do with if you got your cancer from being a bad boy, there's less money, like lung cancer. Lung cancer is the biggest one. It dwarfs everybody, but it doesn't get the most money, the most research, because everybody's like, well, you should have not smoked.
It's your fault. You did it to yourself. One of the biggest hurdles that we face is that stigma. And you look at what Susan Coleman's done for breast cancer awareness. It's remarkable that you look and you see the color pink and you associate it with breast cancer, and you have walks and events. The problem is, with oral cancer, almost every major cause is self-induced, whether it's tobacco and alcohol related or HPV. Everybody looks at it as, I did it to myself. So if I do, for one, we're not living long enough to share our story. And if some way we are, nobody shares it. Tony Gwynn is one of the best hitters ever to play baseball, and he died at 56 years old from excessive tobacco use. Nobody in the Major League Baseball is talking about it. Why? I mean, you had the opportunity to educate and screen patients regularly that are at the highest risk. It's just taboo, right? I mean, that's why we do marketing a little differently. We have sex, drugs, and oral cancer everywhere you can find, because if we're not addressing the HPV issue, then who is? And we're not going to change these trends.
Well, Kyle, we just got the name of this podcast. It's Sex, Drugs, and Oral Cancer by Robert Whitman. I mean, who's not going to click into sex, drugs, and oral cancer? I mean, they'll see that and think, well, I hope they left a number. Is there some is there a website I can go to? So let's start with that. What is latest statistic on oral cancer? You're going just to summarize, it's 1 death per hour in the U.S. or world?
It is. That's just the U.S. So we're getting, the incidence rate is 53,000 cases this year alone. We're getting about 10,000
diagnosed or dead.
That's diagnosed.
Okay.
53,000 diagnosed. We're going to get about 10,000 of that dying every year here in the U.S. 60-70% of those patients that are diagnosed are found in late stages. Because traditionally, when you see or feel a tumor, it's a secondary tumor that we find.
So it's 1 death in the U.S. per hour.
Correct.
Per hour. 53,000 cases diagnosed annually, and 10,000 will die.
Yep. And then worldwide, you get 127,000 deaths. And that's a lot.
Worldwide, how many?
127,000 oral cancer deaths every year. And that's with 274,000 cases. So you're seeing half the population that's diagnosed with oral cancer die within 5 years.
How many diagnosed worldwide? How many?
274,000. So the 5-year survival rate worldwide is less than 30%. I mean, that's tough.
Worldwide survival rate is what?
Less than 30%. So, we spend half of our time educating because the dental industry does a very good job with education, but oral cancer is now one that, it's a mandatory 12-hour credit every year. And, we struggle with educating on the new trends and new factors because there is new technology that we can help change lives, and it's just getting people to incorporate it into their everyday practice.
So let's talk about you have a famous lecture called Sex, Drugs, and Oral Cancer. What does that mean? Why did you add sex and drugs and oral cancer? Those 3 things normally don't go together.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of the time we think of it's marketing, right? So we throw the word sex in there and drugs and people want to listen, which is partially why we did it. Realistically, it's because oral cancer is caused from 2 major risk factors: tobacco and alcohol for the longest time, but now the sex comes in from sexually transmitted HPV. And, you've talked about it. I've listened to all your podcasts you've had a ton of educated people getting on talking about oropharyngeal cancer, HPV relationship. And, it's tough. We're not fully comprehending right now where this is going to be within the next 10 years, because this is just the start to what HPV is going to do for the oral cavity and oral pharynx specifically. So we got a long way ahead of us, and I think education and early discovery is really the key to helping change these trends.
Well, that's another one. I mean, well, first of all, on the HPV,
Yep.
it's not just from kissing, though. I mean, it's not just from sex. It's from kissing and, well, just kissing in general. I mean, I don't want to just say oral sex, but can you transmit HPV, obviously, by kissing?
Yeah, I mean, you saw that recent dental article that came out that said where there's like, whenever you French kiss someone, there's so many bacteria and things getting swapped. It is mainly from sexually transmitted, so it's typically oral sex. So we're seeing it stem from the cervix to the mouth. So we don't have to draw stick figures on how it gets from the cervix to the mouth, but that is how we're traditionally seeing it. But it also can be from sharing a drink after a loved one. There's a reason that every time a woman's about to have a child, they get an annual pap, they get pap smears regularly. It's because if the mother has HPV, then the child is likely to get HPV too, and we got to be able to prevent against that early on. So it can be mother-child at birth, sharing a drink, and then the highest incidence is from sexually transmission.
So, do you think Michael Douglas played a big role in getting this out when he came out and he said, I got oral cancer and it was from oral sex? And when the newspapers heard Michael Douglas say oral sex, I mean, they jumped on that to know tomorrow. What did you think of the whole Michael?
I'm in New York walking down, Broadway, and there's a huge tabloid on the side that says, "Sex gave me cancer." And of course, you got to grab that. I don't know what that means, but we're in the cancer world. So I grabbed the article, and it's Michael Douglas telling the world that, cunnilingus gave him oral cancer. And for the next month, cunnilingus was the most Googled word. And I tell everybody, you're going to Google it. Don't Google it on a work computer, or don't Google it next to kids. Because cunnilingus is oral sex. He just tried to pretty up the way he got oral cancer from not just saying it blatantly. He did a good job for a year about educating about oral cancer and how HPV relationship, but then his PR team told him to stop talking about it. And unfortunately, that's where we're at with oral cancer. Kind of your point earlier, people aren't getting above, and people like Michael Douglas have a great opportunity to share the world about oral cancer. And he did it for a year, but it makes him look bad, and he got more questions than he wanted.
It made me not want to kiss him anymore. I absolutely stopped that dream. But it's funny. We started this about okay, you turn someone stand on their hands and you look at the cervix and the whole world's behind you, the health insurance, everything. The vaccine for HPV that our patients be getting is Gardasil. And you open up the Gardasil9.com website, and it's vaccine A for cervix and vaccine B for Gardasil. So, I mean, we're supposed to be a doctor of dental surgery, a physician of the mouth. And all my MD friends, they're totally on top of cervical, and all my dentist homies, they don't talk about this to patients. They don't give the vaccine. I'm in Arizona. I'm not even allowed to give a flu shot, let alone a vaccine for HPV, but I can go into Walgreens and have a pharmacy tech give me a flu shot. It's like, okay, my 9 years of college, I can't do it, but a farm tech who looks like he's younger than any of my 4 children. I mean, so why, what do you think of Gardasil 9? And again, it has to be some cultural taboo.
Yeah, I think the part about healthcare that we're all trying to figure out is, how do we have this integrated medicine from dentistry is doing blood pressures, and you're doing so many things in the dental office. But let's be real. I'm going to go to my dentist every 6 months, and I don't know who my PCP is. I haven't been to a primary care physician in years because you typically don't do your annuals as much as people would like, because people go in when they get sick. But dentistry should be able to step up, and everybody's got their own rules and regulations they got to take care of, which puts a hurdle in it. I think if you look at the vaccines, some people are pro or against vaccines, or it's everybody's personal choice, but you got to look at the risk versus the reward. And right now, the risk of oral cancer has been rising, and the reward for being able to get vaccinated from a disease that's been affecting a lot more patients is there. So it goes back to education, and your point, it's ease of use, and we can get people to be able to give these vaccines like a dental office, then yeah, I think more people would give it. People would give it.
But there's several threads on Dental Town discussing, is it a personal choice? Is it is a vaccine? And and what I can't stand the most is when somebody asks an honest question, then society marginalizes them. Just stop doing that. Quit being, you're not going to change someone's mind by bullying them and making them feel bad. You have to engage them, and there's no such thing as a stupid question. The dentists are upfront that they're concerned that you're right not to vaccine, and then you bring your kid into my pediatric dental office and expose 30 kids, and that makes the evening news. Is this vaccine really a personal choice?
Yeah, I mean, I think early on in Texas, it was created in Texas by MD Anderson and one of their affiliates, and the governor at the time tried to mandate it. And, here in the United States, if you get anything mandated, people get turned off. Whether the vaccine was beneficial or not, when it comes out of the gates mandated, people fought back way, way too hard, and it started on the bad foot. So, mandating vaccines, yeah, the challenge is if now with vaccinations in schools, they're mandatory because all it takes is one kid not to be vaccinated to be in a school and everybody's sick. So, it's tough. I don't have a ton of experience with it, but as far as my kids, because I have a 4.5-year-old and an almost 2-year-old. So we haven't had the conversations yet, but my wife's an ER nurse, and we believe in science, we believe in the medical industry, and these vaccines work. They're out there for a reason.
What I have found here in Phoenix, if I'm able to change someone's mind, is that they say, well, if you're vaccinated, you're not going to get it. What are you worried about? It's used to be worried about my kid, so they don't understand. I said, well, that's a great thought, but my kid or myself will still get the virus, and my body will have to go to war. And it's going to be in a full front war before this vaccine kicks in, builds up my immune system. And yeah, I won't die from it because I got vaccinated, but I'll be coming home from war. And yeah. I don't want to go to war. And they're like, oh, so, because they just think, well, if you get a vaccine, you have this magic shield, the virus can't come in. So they don't understand virology. And so let's just go through it. Why is dentistry not screening for oral cancer?
I think there's a lot of factors that play a role with that. For one, anything insurance pays for, I think people are more likely to do. So if you want to talk about the elephant in the room, if we can get insurance companies on board, the issue with that, and again, I have no political issue with insurance companies, but they don't take care of us in our screening. So the reason that insurance companies don't cover our screenings or screenings with any adjunctive device is mainly because, and I've asked somebody high up at one of the insurance companies, and he's swore to me he'll deny this if I put him on the stand, so I won't give names, but said, hey, why don't you guys cover oral cancer screening? For us, cervical cancer gets covered because for every dollar you spend, you save $5 long term, right? And that's the whole purpose of prevention. For them, for every dollar you spend on oral cancer screening, you save the medical insurance company money. So why would the dental insurance pay $2 to $5 million in their premiums when it doesn't save them a dime? It saves the guy down the street the money. And unfortunately, that's the world we're in. And insurance dictates a lot of stuff, and you and I will probably agree that we shouldn't let it dictate things, but it does for patients. So a lot of our patients that get educated that insurance may or may not cover, and it's a simple fee for service, they do go ahead and get the screening. But for the offices that are insurance driven, we don't expect to cover this in the near future because it's not saving that insurance company money. They run a for-profit business, and they're saving their counterpart down the street, the medical insurance company, that money. So that's the biggest reason. The other reasons are people don't want to talk about cancer. I've heard a million times, I'd rather not talk about cancer. I got into dentistry to do cosmetic and to make patients feel better. Unfortunately, I think we have a responsibility to our patients that you guys are the educating factor. You're their clinicians now. You have to talk about everything that they need to know about, and oral cancer has been on the rise for a long time. And I think the third and final challenge is technology. It's not something that people learn about in dental school. It's not something that has been out there for 50, 60 years. We have advanced technology now that's not diagnostic, but we have to embrace it, that it's just one of the tools that we have in our office. And part of what we try to offer is unlimited education so that when you do have a patient in the chair and you have a lesion you're concerned about, call us. Let us help you. You're not on an island on your own. You're not going to call the oral pathologist that's going to give you his or her thoughts without even seeing the lesion. Let's have a discussion. Let's take some pictures. Let's do some diagnostics, and let's figure out what's the game plan for this patient. And I think knowing that you have somebody on your side to help you through that process, we have offices that are on board a lot more frequently, and we're screening patients every day, because unfortunately it's not the 40-year-old smoker anymore. It's the 16-year-old that walks in the door that doesn't have any risk factors whatsoever.
So let's finish the point on the dental insurance. History repeats itself, because the more things change, the more you're still a Homo sapien. And as a Homo sapien goes from smoke signals to the telegraph to the telephone, and the internet is only the telegraph 2.0 or 3.0, but 1895 x-rays were discovered, and it was in 1896, the next year, that Charles Edmund Kells took the first dental x-ray. And there was nobody was using dental x-rays until 1954, when the first dental insurance company started in California. And then when they came out with their dental insurance for the Longshoremen's Club of, they were the shipping industry. Every container that came in and out of America went through the Longshoremen's Club, and they covered 100% for cleanings, exams, and x-rays. And America, like a domino, everybody bought an x-ray machine. So the fact is that woulda, shoulda, coulda doesn't matter. Someone's got to pay for this. The patient is got to pay for it, or the dental insurance. So is the patient coming in and asking you for a flu shot, and they'll pay you $10 like they do at Walgreens, or they asking you for Gardasil 9 by Merck and Company and pay for that upon, it's a crazy mess. So tell me specifically, what are you doing? What is Forward Science? I mean, you've been on this for a long time. What are you doing to help this today? Like, so I'm a dentist. I saw patients a couple of days last week. You see something you're suspicious about. How are you changing that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first step that we wanted to do is we wanted to take current technology that's being used at the top cancer center in the nation and get it out to every single person in the world that can use it. So obviously the dental industry is who we need to focus on. You guys are seeing patients across the board. So for us, we took technology, fluorescence technology, that we utilize for both cervical cancer and oral cancer, along with upper and lower endoscopies in the lungs. So any mucosal cells in the body. We took that technology, we incorporated it into an easy, user-friendly, simple device with no per patient costs. And we want every dentist, and specifically every hygienist, to have a device, and every time you see a patient, you screen them. It takes 2 minutes. It is not diagnostic. It's not going to just throw a red flag and say cancer's there, but it's just like your loops. If you see a lesion of interest, it's going to help you see it better. That's the purpose of it. So our device, Oral ID, has been on the market since 2013. We've been saving lives ever since. We have patients that are lesions that are found early that aren't even cancer yet.
On what's this one called?
Oral ID.
Okay, Oral ID. Okay.
So Oral ID has been on the market since 2013. It's a simple, easy device. I mean, you can see how simple and easy it is. It's a simple light, and you shine a light on the patient's tissue. You wear a pair of glasses, and the glasses block out all the light coming out of the device. We only want to see the fluorescence from the tissue. And then you're able to see lesions much earlier. So here's one of our laminated sheets that we give to the dental office. And you can see lesions that are white light compared to fluorescence technology. It gives us the ability to see these lesions when they're stage 1, stage 0. And that's the difference from a patient having 80% survival rate to a 40% survival rate. So that's our first step. We launched Oral ID. We thought that the device itself was going to change the market, but we then shortly realized you can't just launch a device and hope everybody uses it. Things happen. You guys are busy. You're running a practice. There's new technology every year. So what we did was we said, hey, let us do a program. Let's give you marketing material to market your practice. Let's give you unlimited support, continuing education. Let's have a doctor on staff. When you have a lesion, you take a filter. So you put this on your smartphone. You snap a picture of the patient's mouth, send us the lesion, and let's help you through it. So now we have a monthly program that we support our offices from marketing efforts all the way to saving lives. And our offices are making money. They're marketing their practice better. And ultimately what our goal is, and hopefully everybody's goal is, we're able to change some lives by finding cancer early. That's really what our goal's been for the longevity of Forward Science.
So then you're really a teledentistry. I mean,
well, diagnosis always goes to you guys, but yeah, I mean, we're the unlimited support. If they have a question, if you need anything, we're going to walk you through. And it's not that we're clinicians; it's that we're science-based, and we've seen every case possibly. We work with the top cancer center religiously on a lot of different research and studies. We know what people are looking at. We know the tissue is challenging to look under a new type of light. So let us help. You find a lesion, take a picture, send it to us. Let's walk you through what the thought process should be. And
okay.
over time,
let's go back to the oral AD. We're going through a lot of your prices. So it's how much does that cost? How much is a starter kit? Tell me since insurance not paying it is definitely money's the answer. What's the question? So my homies listening right now, what is this cost? What are people charging for it? How does this work financially, since at the end of the month, my staff's going to want to get paid. I'm going to have to pay my rent, mortgage, equipment, bill, out, computer, insurance, malpractice. So how does this economically work? Talk MBA.
So typically in the past, these devices cost between $2,000 and $5,000 up front. And then every time you screen a patient, there's a $2.50 sheet. So the average office screens about 100 patients a month. That's $250 a month. So that's an upfront cost and an ongoing cost. And that's why dentistry wasn't going after a lot. It's not cheap. So we said, hey, look, our goal is not just to sell a bunch of widgets and then to ride off in the sunset, right? We want to change lives and we want to truly make an impact on dentistry. So we said, hey, what if we just say no upfront cost? And instead of charging every time you screen a patient, what if we have a device that just charges you a low monthly fee so that now you don't have to worry about $250 a month, and then you screen 200 patients, now it's $500 a month. So we now offer our device in a complete program. It's nothing up front, $200 a month, and that's it. You get a limited warranty, unlimited CE credits. You get a lot of different social media signs. So when you're marketing this to your practice, you want to hold up a sign that says 50 Shades of Oral Cancer, put it on Facebook, put it on social media, and let your patients be your marketing. So typically our offices, if you look at the economics, they charge between $20 and $35 per screening. Again, it costs you $0. So that's $20, $35 profit. After the first day of hygiene, we typically see about a 75% acceptance. You've paid your monthly fee, and you have 100% profit after that. So our offices are making between $2,000 and $3,000 per device in their office. Every hygienist, puts it in their comp plan if that's something that offices do. If it's up to the bottom line for the office,
it's $250 a month.
It's $200 a month.
$200 a month.
Yeah, most other devices are $250 a month because the sheath is $250, and then they screen 100 patients.
Wow, and what year did this come out?
We launched in 2013, March 2013. We switched to our monthly program. We call it the ID for Life program from the market demand. The market wanted more support, more marketing, more literature. And as a small business, you can't just give stuff out for free.
Started in what year?
2013.
And instead of having, I think one of the biggest problems is, there's a statement of income, a statement of cash flow, a balance sheet. The business model of a monthly reoccurring revenue, a reoccurring revenue model like Netflix, is why Netflix almost had a valuation of Disney, because Disney was at, I've seen it in 30 years where, a company would sell a laser for $50,000 and they'd sell 1,000 of them, and then they'd go bankrupt because they had no reoccurring revenue. And I saw it in dental software. The best dental software companies are ones that just charge, they'll just say, okay, we just want $100 a month. Because if all you guys are paying $100 a month, we can plan our payroll, our expansion, our bills. But if we sell you something really big one time, we're panicking because we don't know how to budget because we can't predict the future. So congratulations on converting to a reoccurring revenue model. It's the obvious no-brainer business model. So you started this in 2013. It's $200 a month. How popular, successful is that? It's now 2019. So 6 years. How many dentists are doing this now?
So in 2013, we sold outright and we went that route. And then in 2015, we switched to the monthly model. So as far as worldwide, we do have a lot of offices worldwide that are using this. Third world countries obviously have a big opportunity to save some lives. But here in the U.S., we probably have 4,000 or 5,000 offices that have a device. We got our footprint in with some of the large groups that we work with. And, DSOs are probably a whole other topic of conversation that we can go over. But for them, they wanted to motivate their team, differentiate themselves, but also make some money. So, if DSOs are doing it, then there's an opportunity for the revenue driving aspect to be there. So
which DSOs are doing it?
So Smile Brands came on board within the first Smile Brands.
Okay.
So they're right now Smile Brands, Monarch Castle, wherever you are, there's a different office. And then now we're working with, some of the biggest groups in the nation, whether it's Aspen, Heartland, we're working from office to office and then trying to work with corporate to figure out how we can impact their entire system. So for them, they're always looking at their initiatives, and typically their initiatives are a year or two out. But from our end, we want to work with every single practice that's trying to do the right thing, all the way up into big groups. And we don't, we're agnostic to who we go for. We want patients get screened, and whoever's screening patients, that's what we want to be in.
And Smile Brands, he was on Steve Built. He's the CEO and co-founder. He was episode 787. And I always tell these young dentists, those at the end of the day, most of them want to work for themselves, and they'll work for these guys with these, and they'll come out after a couple of years and I'll say, well, tell me, this guy's running several hundred offices. What did you learn from the business? They didn't, they just did fillings and crowns. So when Steve Built is doing something like this, he figured out how to charge money, pay their overhead and net income, because if you don't make profit, you're no longer alive. So congratulations on Steve Built. And but you haven't got have you got Heartland or Aspen or Pacific?
Yeah, we're working with a lot of them regionally. So typically for them, it's a 2-3 year process. We have some regional rollouts that we're working with. For them, they have a lot of initiatives, whether it's lasers, whether it's another hygiene initiative. So the fact that this can be put into hygiene and grow revenue, it's something that we're doing trials with, and we are working with all three of the ones you mentioned. So again, for us, it's bandwidth. We need to be able to go as many offices as we can and service everybody the same. And that's been our focus since day one.
And they want to do a pilot. So it's called the BB gun, the rifle, the cannon, and my favorite business book. Who wrote that? Built to Last, Good to Great.
Was it Steve Covey?
No, not Covey.
Gonna draw a blank. It's on my reading list somewhere around here.
Built to Last was oh my God, Jim Collins. I'm sorry, Jim. I'm sure you're not listening to this, but my 4 favorite business books of all time were all written by him. It was Built to Last, Good to Great, How the Mighty Fall, all that kind of stuff. But what he talks about is successful companies. When they have an idea, like say you're Aspen and you got 500 offices or 900 offices, Heartland, and you just don't say, oh, we're going to do this and do it, because then you might go bankrupt. So what you do is you start with a BB gun. You say, well, let's see if we can hit this. And you'll take one office, one region, and you'll hit it and you'll shoot at it and you hit it. You say, wow, so now we're going to load up and we're going to go to a rifle. So now I'm going to try to shoot you with a rifle. And if that also works, then we're going to go ahead and load up and take a cannonball and hit everyone. And when you don't follow that recipe, you run out of cash. And when you study the 40 to 60,000 bankruptcies that happen each year in the United States, a lot of them were profitable. They just ran out of cash because I just sold you something and you're not going to pay me for 90 days. Well, my bills are $1 a month. I don't have $3 in savings to wait for you to give me $3 in 90 days. So you go out of business and it was profitable. So the collection policy, what insurance, collecting half down when you start and half before you see a crown. If you don't have your financial house on order, you should just call yourself Dr. Woulda, Shoulda, Coulda and prepare for bankruptcy today. So I love the fact that these guys are doing it in a way that would make Jim Collins proud, and they're testing it out regionally. So Oral ID is that would you say that's your flagship product? Because I always think of you as Smile Max too, but what is Forward Science flagship based product?
We made our name from Oral ID. So early on we would go to trade shows and we only had one product. So we would have Oral ID branded everywhere, and that's what we were known for. So when we launched Saliva Max, which is a prescription rinse for dry mouth, we had to rebrand a little bit. We had to put Forward Science really big on everything, and then our products underneath. And that's just par for the course in business, and we're fine with that. So Forward Science has been, with the company's been named since 2012, but we had to focus back to Forward Science in 2015 when we launched Saliva Max and say, hey, look, we have Oral ID, which is an award-winning oral cancer screening device that's been on the market since 2013. We're also looking for an oral health rinse in Saliva Max that we're launching. So we have these two opportunities. We have some diagnostic tests, but Saliva Max was our first introduction to the pharmaceutical world, and there's nothing on the market that actually treats both xerostomia and mucositis. Typically, the way that we come up with a product is we listen to a dentist, and then a hygienist, and then another dentist, and by the 8th time we hear something, we try to figure out how to make it. So people kept complaining about dry mouth and how Biotine doesn't work and how it's acidic and all those things that we hear, but nobody had a solution for that problem. So, my partner and I got to the lab and we said, hey, what can we do? And a year and a half later, we launched Saliva Max, and it's been dentistry's biggest kept secret because people don't always understand how the prescription world works in dentistry, but it's one of the only products that actually treats both xerostomia and mucositis. And the fact that you can treat both of those, it's a game changer for an oncology patient, for a medication-induced xerostomic patient, and anybody else that just has minor xerostomia, which unfortunately is half the population nowadays.
So, xerostomia is so huge because we have the fastest growing population is the over 65. And by the time they're on 5 different medications, they have polyphagia going on, and they're miserable. And it's hard for a young dentist to realize how painful that can be. Even when you eat food, it doesn't even taste right if you don't have saliva. So if Oral ID is your flagship product, and what would be your second? You got Site ID, Path ID, HPV ID, pH ID, BioRed, Saliva Max, Saliva Canes, Stitivig. What would be your next?
We classify, we kind of classify what we're doing here in kind of a few categories. One, we have the devices, which is Oral ID initially for early screening. We have the diagnostics, and that's an entire category. So part of our program that we talked about earlier with Oral ID, you get all of those diagnostics for free. So whether it's Site ID, which is a liquid-based cytology, Path ID, which is a biopsy kit, HPV ID is an HPV test, and pH ID is pH strips to test the mouth for their acidity level. All of those come for free with our program, because we know if you find a lesion, you're going to need to diagnose it. However you want to diagnose it, we have the option for you. So that kind of all lumps together. And then we have our therapeutics. And our therapeutics are Saliva Max, Stitivig, and we're launching another one hopefully here in the next 6 months for another therapeutic. So that's our therapeutics. It's our prescription rinse line that we have. Dentistry has the option to prescribe something that's been clinically proven, and it's more of the therapeutic prescription world.
Okay, so let me get that. So Oral ID is screening, yeah. And then what did you call the next diagnostic? Diagnostic what?
Diagnostic tests.
Diagnostic test, and that
screening, diagnostics, and then therapeutics.
Okay, therapeutics. Okay. Sorry, my walnut brain works. And so your therapeutics are going to be
Saliva Max.
Well, BioRed. Would Saliva Max be the first one you talk about there, or?
Yeah, so Saliva Max and Saliva Cane. Saliva Max is a prescription rinse for dry mouth. Saliva Cane helps patients. It's a 5% benzocaine rinse. It helps the patients that are going through oncology treatment to get through that first week of mucositis pain while they're using Saliva Max to treat it. And Stitivig is a one-and-done cold sore medication that we launched about a year ago. It's a time-release acyclovir, so it's been clinically proven, and now you don't have to worry about the systemic issues with acyclovir. BioRed is just kind of a third outlier that we have, or fourth outlier that we have, which is a mail-back medical waste service, because I'm sure everybody loves that Stericycle's got them in a contract. So BioRed was something that we launched for the dental industry just for a mail order service for sharps and medical waste.
I got to tell you, my, dentistry really started getting, it's probably first big technology was addressing pain with Novocaine. Yep. But I don't think people remember the history. It started out with cocaine. And then you had the obvious problems with cocaine. Do you realize when I was in dental school and you had oral cancer and you couldn't eat or anything like that, they had aerosol cans of 99.999% cocaine, and it was just a lifesaver. I mean, these patients, they couldn't swallow, they had radiation burns, they wanted to kill themselves. And then you had other doctors saying, well, you can't give them that, they might get addicted to that. It's like, dude, they want to kill themselves. So and you're worried about something less than killing themselves, my gosh, it was the most stolen can in Missouri. That's all I'm going to say. We'll end it there. But so it was crazy. So that's saliva cane, and then you also have Citivig.
Citivig, yeah. So it's a time-release acyclovir tablet. So you put it, it's a buccal adhesive tablet. Put it in your mouth, and once you feel the tingling, it prevents a ton of cold sores. It delays the onset of the next cold sore. It's been a product that was launched in the dermatology world for a long time. And dentistry is, typically looking at over-the-counter medication or an ointment for an after-the-fact treatment. This, if you catch it in the prodrome phase, a third of the time it doesn't even erupt. So it's truly something that dentistry can benefit from. But, it goes back to education is the key for everything we do. And we just need to get in front of more people to educate what we're doing.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. There's a lot of young kids that just got out of dental school, or maybe they're in dental school and they're seeing their first patient, and they sit down and Robert Whitman is in for a cleaning or a filling, and he's got a big cold sore, and they know that cold sore is herpes labialis. Do you think that, talk about that. Do you think the dentist already has that? Is it contagious? Talk about that.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people don't know how to have the conversation. It's just
right.
like HPV. People don't know how to sit down, and I'm big on facts. If you educate and say facts, then it's not a I feel, you feel conversation. It's here's the facts about what you have. Herpes is not something that's crazy uncommon. It's induced from some factor, and whether it's stress or whatever they have going on. But Citivig is something that can help. And it's not just after it's erupted. It's you need this product for next time that you feel the tingling. You don't have time to call me and go get it filled. You need the prescription right now with you at all times, so that if you do start to feel the tingling, use the tablet, and then now a third of the time it won't even erupt. And if it does erupt, it's way less severe than typically what you're seeing. So, again, I think prevention is what we're all about at Forward Science, and we want to prevent these bigger issues. And Citivig fit perfectly in our portfolio with preventing these massive cold sores that people are so embarrassed about.
Well, back to her question though. She's wondering, should I reschedule this patient? I'll be 57 in 2 weeks. I've never had a cold sore. I was never afraid to work on a patient with a cold sore. I was never afraid to, kiss someone in my family that had a cold sore. So what, it says, prevalence, of herpes simplex virus type 1 HSV1 was 47.8%. And of herpes simplex type 2, 11.9% from the CDC. Do you like those numbers from the CDC?
Yeah, CDC is typically who we go for with data. No offense to the ADA, but CDC is a little more up to date.
So if you've never had a cold sore and Robert shows up for a cleaning and he's sporting a big old cold sore, would you do it anyway? Would you reschedule? What would you do? You know this stuff at a different level than any of my homies listening.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the clinician themselves and how they practice. I think a lot of clinicians are going to treat the patient and look at convenience, and then may go ahead and do whatever they need to do today. And then you have the other half of them that are going to say, you know what, can you please reschedule? So that's always the clinician to clinician. I'm not a clinician, so I never had to make that decision. But if you've never had a cold sore before, the odds of you having a cold sore at later on in your life, it's not common. I've never suffered from a cold sore, so the odds of me getting a cold sore from someone that has one is pretty slim. But if I am a cold sore carrier and then somebody else does have it, yeah, my odds may be more likely to get it. But there's a lot of other factors that go in than just looking or practicing on someone with a cold sore. It's just like an HPV lesion. People think that, how do I treat this patient with an HPV lesion? Or a good example here is we work with an HIV clinic here in Houston. And, the HIV patient has something that people are worried about a lot. And you don't treat these patients any differently. You see the same patient, and you make sure you treat them the same way, and things are going to be fine. So I think just typical precaution measures in an office are where people are going to lean towards.
So, what are the takeaways? What should my homies be doing with Forward Science? I mean, what do you think the first step? I think the first step is, I think you should do that sex. What is it? Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Did I get that right?
Sex, drugs, and oral cancer.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought, I was always doing sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That's where I messed up. I wish you'd make an online CE course on that on Dentaltown.
Let me know. I'm happy to do it.
I'm Howard. I was the first Howard at Dentaltown, so I'm Howard at dentaltown.com. Shoot me an email if you have any thoughts or shows, or leave comments under the YouTube section. But who does all the online CE is Howard Goldstein. So he's Hogo, Hogo at dentaltown.com. And Sex, Drugs, and Oral Cancer by Robert Whitman, MSE, founder of Forward Science. That would be so in a recap, how would you what are the takeaway summaries?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing is get educated. You know, whether it's from us, whether it's from wherever else. We do have some online courses on our own, and I'd love to put them on your platform. So learn more about oral cancer, who's at risk, who's the people you need to screen. Unfortunately, it's everyone. And then on top of that, you know, make sure that you use adjunctive technology. We'd love everybody to try out Oral ID. It's, you know, again, no upfront cost. It's simple, easy to use. And if you don't like it in 30 days, send it back. And the fact that people can try a device, A, see how they like it clinically, and B, make some money while you do it. I mean, that's the perfect scenario for a dental provider, to make money while they're saving lives. And if you don't see the benefit in that, then we probably have other issues. And then have the conversation with your patients. You know, I think a lot of people are afraid of having an open conversation, but in today's world, they want transparency. You know, your patients want to know about HPV and oral cancer, and they're reading about it somewhere else, and it's probably incorrect. You have to be the bearer of information. And, you know, some of our brochures that we give out to our offices are, you know, we say it blatantly: sex, drugs, and oral cancer. So,
okay, but I mean, today on the news, even very conservative Christian evangelicals, they're mad at Trump on his last deal, not for any policy thing he said, but because he took the Lord's name in vain 3 times during the show, and it's exploding. And when you go to Dentaltown and you just drop in the keyword HPV or oral cancer, all the threads are talking about, these dentists are saying they're not going to talk about that. It's not going to happen. So this is our country, and it's a very, very conservative country. So how are you going to get?
Let us talk for you is what, you know, part of the reason we switched to this elaborate program is let us market for you. Let us give you these social signs that you're putting up that says, you know, F oral cancer, so that you put it on social media and they call you for that. Or, you know, in last April, we launched a lips campaign. So it's called Kiss Oral Cancer Goodbye. People are taking pictures of these lips, put it on social media. Nobody knows what the lips mean, but when they show up at your office and you say that meant kiss oral cancer goodbye, now
hold those lips up again. So if you watch this on YouTube, if those lips had a cold sore, would you kiss them? I'm going with yes. No problem.
Well, ask you, Howard, which color is your favorite color? You got, you know, pink, purple, and we have a million other colors that we choose from.
Well, mine's purple, and when I told my granddaughter it was pink, she said it couldn't be pink because I was a boy. And so we agreed that hers was pink and mine was purple. But there's a thread on Dentaltown: HPV vaccine discussion with dentist. And somebody, the first post, hell to the no, no. And I mean, this is they're not going to do it. So you're going to help them. And you know, Elvis Presley, I really admired him because I was born in '62 in Kansas, and my mom, my gosh, she had everything Elvis did, the Beatles did, and the Glenn Miller Orchestra. And that's what I grew up on. And in 1956, Elvis Presley got a polio vaccination live on national TV. The one event was partly responsible for raising immunization levels in the United States from 0.6% to 80% in 6 months. That's how big Elvis is. I mean, Elvis is in the house. And where are, you know, this deal where who's going to be the HPV Gardasil? Who's going to be the Elvis in the house with HPV? Was it Michael Douglas? Is he even running for it? Wasn't there rumors about some quarterback for the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, so Jim Kelly's had oral cancer, and he's on his 3rd spout now, and he moved part of his jaw, and For him, it was tobacco use. So I think the challenge is who's going to be the next Elvis? Nobody, because everybody's ashamed about it. So we have to beat it to the punch and say, look, let's not wait for you to be the poster child. Let's make sure that we're doing everything we can for our patients. And that's screening. It's a 2-minute exam. Some offices want to talk about HPV, some don't. Call it an oral health assessment. Don't say the word HPV or oral cancer. I'm a transparent person, and I'm probably going to ask them questions about, if you're 6 or more oral sexual partners, you're 8.6 times more likely to get oral cancer. Some people ask the question of how many oral sex partners have you had? Some don't. To each his own, but however you do it in your office, we'll help you with that questionnaire, the risk assessment survey, the verbiage. Let us be your guidance on that, but do something. Ulysses S. Grant died a long time ago from oral cancer, and the same way Ulysses S. Grant is being screened is the same way we're screening today. And for me, that's not acceptable in a disease that is very, very easily treated if we find it early, but we're just not finding it early enough.
That is amazing. And I really enjoyed this study a while back. It was showing that, a lot of these countries, they just started vaccinating women first. And then the first studies that came out long-term is the boys were benefiting from it because they didn't get the vaccine, but now the girls they're kissing don't have it. And it's all herd disease. And no one wants to talk about herd disease. Every time some child is taken to the OR to be put down, to have a bunch of pulpotomies and crumb-still crowns, and they don't come out of the procedure, and the horrible thing happens, the media never addresses, why did that 2-year-old need 8 root canals? Talk about herd disease. She's living in a barn with a bunch of people that have blown out decay everywhere, and they're all sharing spoons and kissing and hugging and playing. So the first significant data we really have on HPV vaccines is when you gave it to all the girls, the boys didn't get it. So why have you seen Margaret every 3 months for periodontal disease for the last 5 years, and you don't even know who her husband is? Do they have a plutonic marriage with 3 kids? Were their children conceived at Tulane University in a petri dish? I mean, it's a herd disease. So you're the smartest man I know on this subject. You have 2 children. 2 of how many? What's the plan on this?
Oh man, we're in Houston, Texas, and our family's in New Orleans, so we're going to stick with 2 right now for our sanity, but we're figuring out here shortly. And
when will you give them the HPV vaccine? And have you and your wife had it? And would it still just be only Gardasil 9 by Merck?
So no, there's more Gardasil shots now, and there's a few other companies that have it. The good thing is the vaccine's advanced enough where it doesn't protect just against 16 and 18. Which cause the majority of cervical and oral cancer. It's way more than that. So it's about 6 or 7 types now. I didn't have the luxury of having it, more than my wife, because it didn't come out in time. You have to get it before you've been infected with HPV. So the Gardasil team actually approves it. Merck approves it for 9-year-old boys and girls. Because if you get it before you become sexually active, then more likely you haven't had HPV yet. But if you get the vaccine when you're 18 and you've already been infected with HPV, then the vaccine doesn't work. So that's why they recommend 9-year-old boys and girls. And yeah, my wife, again, she's an ER nurse. She's very well medically trained, way more than me. And unfortunately, from the world that we live in, knowing too much information isn't good. We're most likely going to vaccinate our kids when the time comes.
And when do you think, well, basically, I want to say something else. It's called the value chain. And when I grew up with my dad, when he had Sonic drive-ins, he was on equal footing with his value chains, the meat man, the produce, everything. And everybody worked together to serve a hamburger to their common customer. And dentists have been so abusive and holier than thou, that the dental societies, like the California dental societies would have lectures by Bill Dickerson called Delta, Insurance or the Devil. And Delta's like, really? You're bringing in a speaker that's referring to me as a devil, and we sold $1 billion of dental insurance in your state, you cretin morons? And we're paying the price for the arrogance that we've treated Delta Dental. And then you wonder why they snap back at you. Your state dental societies, and the American Dental Society, they got a bunch of relationship repair they got to do. And then Delta Dental. I mean, the average Delta Dental guy in a state will probably give some dentist $100,000 a year, and that dentist couldn't even pick that guy out of a police lineup. Never sent him a gift. Never sent him cookies. Never, because I'm a dentist and you're not. And then the State Board of Dental Examiners. I mean, you want to get permission to give a flu shot or any of this new technology, but they've only met you twice, and both times you walked in there with a lawyer cussing and screaming. I mean, when is dentist gonna figure out that they're part of this very complex dental value chain?
Yeah, I think it's the fight or flight mentality. I mean, most dentists are running their own practice, and you got to scrape for every dollar, and it's tough. It's just to your point earlier about why Forward Science is looking at a long haul picture, because we want to do the right thing today. And yeah, we could probably do more financially today, but I want to be here in 10 years. I want to make sure that we can service the products that we're offering with our offices. So I think a lot of times people look at the small picture, not the big picture. Run the value proposition to taking insurance versus not. If you offer this screening, 20-30% of them do get covered. So try that. But if it doesn't get covered, then tell your patient, hey, your insurance didn't cover this. It's going to be $20 out of pocket. You charge for a copay for a pap smear or mammogram, $20, $30. Patients are willing to pay for services if they understand it. For me personally, I pay my dentist $65 for a screening, and he educates me. Everything that I told him to say, he says, and he pretty much guilts me into paying it because I have to, because I can't say no. So if you educate properly, I think it goes a long way. But depending on insurance, it's tough these days. But to your point, they're not the devil. It's just understand what their value is, use that value, and then go elsewhere if you need more value.
Well, I think, the reason Dentaltown Online CE has been, such a huge hit. We have 400 courses. They've been viewed 1 million times because it's succinct to an hour. It's perfect for a staff meeting. Instead of flying your staff and put them in hotels and closing down business for a day, you can just keep them on the payroll, order a pizza for lunch, and watch one of these courses. I'd love for you to do a 1-hour lunch course on sex, drugs, rock and roll, and what the hell is oral cancer. I want to finish the last question with how do you metric success for oral IED? I mean, if you were, what is your metric? How do you metric success for this?
I mean, it's tough. Ultimately, for one, I'll say this: having your kid have a device in the bathtub and seeing the whole tub light up blue is always a success. But I think typically people look at success as how much money you're making or how many offices that are using your device. We look at it from the patient standpoint. How many lives can we truly affect and how many lives can we change? Because we didn't just sell a device. We had an office use our device on every patient that walked in the door. And those stories that we get back from offices that say, hey, without your device, or without your CE course, without this technology, I would have missed this lesion, and who knows what would have happened to Miss Smith. I mean, that's the ultimate pinnacle for us. Whether it's 5 devices or 100 million devices, I don't care. If nobody uses them, then what's the point of making this great technology? So we metric our success in lives saved. And the fact that we can actually do that is pretty grounding.
And, to my young homies out there, I love what excites me the most about this podcast, why I'm not going to stop doing it while you guys are still consuming it, is the fact that my gosh, you're the next generation. I mean, we're about to fade away. You guys are going to replace us. And when I was your age, look how marginalized gay people were. And now they legally get married. They're no longer marginalized. So you young dentists, you're going to go take a job for some conservative dentist, and he's not going to talk about any of these things, and real people are going to die. And you're a millennial. You have to man up, woman up, homo sapien up, and education is the key. And if you young dentists and hygienists out there can't look a patient in the eye and talk about sex, drugs, and oral cancer, then that means your decision of what was culturally appropriate will end with this person going to die. I mean, I already know people who got their teeth cleaned every 6 months, went to ASU, got oral pharyngeal cancer, and they're no longer here. And I always think to myself, that little girl saw a dentist every 6 months in the same office and she was 2 years old, and he was a board certified pediatric dentist. I mean, and she's dead. We didn't do our job. I mean, What would you do if the fireman said, well, you know what? I just don't really want to go to a house on fire. I don't find people are running out of the house naked and they were, you know, it's just not appropriate. Come on, millennials, man up. Talk about sex, drugs, and oral cancer. And Robert, it was just an honor for you to come on the show today. Thanks so much for coming on, and hopefully in your career, you can see us finally make the corner and start being physicians of the oral mouth and not molar mechanics. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. We appreciate it. Keep doing great work.
All right, buddy. Bye-bye.